try and warm the old place up tonight. Do our best. You do your best, and we'll all win. How you doing?
He was rock and roll's sexiest superstar. She was his little angel.
Kimberly was such a little drama queen. I mean, we used to call her Betty Davis.
I would just cling onto his leg, and I'd be like, no, Daddy, I had a dream that your plane's gonna crash. You can't go.
As the saying goes, like father, like daughter.
They do portray Kim as a party girl, purely because, I think, you are who you hang out with.
For Kimberly, fame was a fight.
People have all these preconceived notions of spoiled little brat or crazy rock star's daughter.
To be born into this kind of life, there's always a penalty to the privilege.
Rod faced a much tougher battle.
The time he was diagnosed with the cancer.
It was very traumatic just to hear that word.
I just started bawling.
In the next hour, exclusive interviews and rare photos and footage reveal the family saga behind the rock and roll glitz.
There was always another woman in his life. She never kind of had him to herself.
I'm pretty in tune to musicians at this point and their little tricks.
Between you and me, I haven't changed at all.
This is the story of a truly dynamic duo.
He turned up to school functions in a Lamborghini and leopard pants.
This is Rod and Kimberly Stewart, the E! True Hollywood story.
I am Daddy's little girl. I will always, always be that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited, and he's such a good support system for me.
Paparazzi princess Kimberly Stewart had some impressive fans, but none more recognizable than her dad, rock legend Rod Stewart.
It's a little unnerving, because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to actually do, because I'm not the star of the show, for a change, and Kimberly is, so I don't know where to put my body, as it were.
While Kimberly made a name for herself as a model and designer, Rod focused on more domestic endeavors. In November 2005, he became a father for the 7th time, this time with his 34-year-old fiancée, Penny Lancaster. Their newborn, a baby boy named Alistair.
I'm very content. This is a very good point in my life. I couldn't ask for anything more. You know, to be having a child at 60 is a phenomenal boost for the ego, if I may say.
He's like a 30-year-old.
Everything is rosy in the garden. It's brilliant.
I mean, this man, he will never stop going.
Roderick David Stewart hit the ground running in London, England on January 10th, 1945. Rod was the youngest of 5 kids. His hard-working parents, Robert and Elsie, ran a news agency.
Music was a huge influence in the Stewart household. His father and his mother used to go out every weekend, and they were very keen on music, and he would hear them singing some of the great classic tunes from those days.
Music became Rod's favorite pastime.
My dad bought me a guitar for no apparent reason, you know, because he thought there might be some money in it.
When Rob was 15 or 16, he'd begun his singing career. Now, there was no income in it, so he had to do other jobs.
He took this grave digging job, which I think lasted about a week. Something which, the word we used to use in the 60s was snazzy. It was a snazzy job to do, being a grave digger.
Rod also played in local bands and worked on his vocals. The practice paid off.
Long John Baldry, who was a seminal blues figure in the 60s in England, had a band and heard Rod singing one night on Twickenham Station and said, "Young man, you've got a nice voice, come and sing with me."
Stewart accepted Baldry's invitation to join the band Steam Packet.
He was terribly shy when he first got up on stage. He used to sing with his back to the audience, couldn't face them, much to everyone's amusement. But eventually he managed to turn himself around and realize that there was an audience he should actually be singing to.
Steam Packet was one of the hottest live bands in the UK. Rod's unique look made it even hotter.
In England, there were a whole breed of kids called the mods, and the mods were the most stylish teenagers there were.
Ladies took note, one in particular.
Rod met this beautiful girl called Susanna, and they had a loving, fairly long relationship. Then she became pregnant, and it was difficult times in those days. And I think Rod decided that a child at that stage of his life, when he was so young, still in his teens, might be adverse towards his great dreams. The child was put up for adoption.
18-year-old Rod and his girlfriend split. For Stewart, career came first. In 1967, a hot guitarist named Jeff Beck recruited Stewart as the lead vocalist for his band, the Jeff Beck Group.
It's hard to imagine Jeff Beck and Rod Stewart's ego fitting in one little little power trio. So it didn't last long.
Fortunately, another popular band was looking for a fresh face.
Rod Stewart brought a face to the Faces. They were a traveling group of plundering rock stars, you know, who wanted your booze and women in that order.
Try and warm the old place up tonight. Do our best, you do your best, and we'll all win.
Rod was determined to be the main attraction. While still with the Faces, he cut 2 solo albums. Neither sold well, but in 1971, the 26-year-old tried again. Stewart's third album, Every Picture Tells a Story, featured an autobiographical song called Maggie May.
It's based on a truth. It was my first shag where I lost my virginity, and it lasted precisely 28 seconds. It was at the Bewley Jazz Festival when I was very young. Well, not by today's standards, but I was about 16. And I lost my virginity to this rather large girl. I don't think her name was Maggie, but that's what the song's all about. I wasn't a stud in those days, far from it.
Maggie May, think of what that woman did for him. Got him laid and made him a superstar. I hope he wrote her a thank you letter at some point.
Maggie May topped the charts on both sides of the Atlantic and became Rod Stewart's first #1 hit. It also marked his farewell to the Faces. According to Stewart, in 1975, he left his native England for Beverly Hills, California, where he could dodge hefty British taxes. The rocker indulged in the Hollywood lifestyle and encountered a legendary Bond girl.
Britt Ekland was a very famous, gorgeous Swedish actress, and Rod had just exploded worldwide. And when that comes together, they become a tabloid gift. So the papers and the photographers followed them everywhere, and they were a very attractive couple.
He's a very boyish person, and he's a very generous person emotionally. And I think in an emotional way, I was really swept off my feet.
Well, she's magnificent. I mean, the thing that I'm more impressed with than anything is her insight to my business.
But Rod's flirtation with another blonde film star soon got him into hot water.
What about you, Rod? Because you've got a great reputation as a womanizer, and we all read the scandal. You were chatting up with Susan George and got a smacked face for it. Do you get annoyed by this?
Which was not true. I have to point out at this time, it was absolutely not true. It was one of several totally and utterly fabricated stories about us.
Why is it?
Yes, darling. It's quite true. What she says is very true.
No, it is true.
What she says has made it very clear, hasn't it?
By August of 1977, Rod and Britt were history. The breakup devastated Ekland, who developed an eating disorder. She also sued Stewart for more than $12 million, citing breach of contract. Ekland claimed she gave up her own career to support Stewart's. The suit was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount.
I think he just felt that it was sad that someone had made money out of him, and I think it did sort of cloud his view of women from then on in terms of his own personal fortune.
Yet Rod wasn't exactly hurting. The singer was cranking out an album per year. He was also prolific with the ladies. In 1978, another blonde beauty entered the picture. 32-year-old model Alana Hamilton, the ex-wife of movie star George Hamilton. Rod met Alana at a Hollywood party and asked his manager to give her a call.
I said, well, doesn't he know how to use a telephone? I didn't really find him attractive until we actually went out and started talking, and as the night went on, he was very cute. He had a very charming little boyish way about him.
I remember them just being all over each other like cheap suits. I mean, they were just so, you know, mad about each other.
A few months later, Alana found out she was pregnant.
I wasn't interested in having a baby and not being married, so, you know, it was real clear that that was part of the package. If we were going to have a baby, then we needed to be married.
On April 6th, 1979, the two blondes made it official.
It was a very kind of last-minute wedding because Rod was really paranoid, and we got married at Tina Sinatra's house.
The wedding ceremony itself was very small. It was in my living room. It was the quietest little service I've ever attended, actually, but that was by choice, and that was fine with me. It could have been a circus.
Coming up, daughter knows best.
I would just cling onto his leg, and I'd be like, no, Daddy, I had a dream that your plane's gonna crash. You can't go.
Demand.
I thought I was going to wake up the Monday after I got married. On the Friday. It was going to be a black cloud over my head, but sure, it was okay. I'm enjoying it. But between you and me, you know, I haven't changed at all.
On August 20th, 1979, rock star Rod Stewart and his wife Alana welcomed a baby girl, Alana Kimberly Stewart.
Rod was there at the birth. They gave him this hairnet things to put on his head, the cap things, and he had on these leopard skin boots. So in the delivery room with the green paper outfit. And he loved it. He was a great dad, and he loved being with Kimberly.
But the rocker also had other commitments.
Kimberly was born, you know, when Rod Stewart was, you know, already at the sort of peak of superstardom.
Rod's single, Do You Think I'm Sexy, was selling 250,000 records a week and topping charts in 11 countries.
That was the point in his career where he needed to be on the road a lot.
When Kimberly was 3 months old, Alana became pregnant again.
I thought you couldn't get pregnant when you were breastfeeding, but I was wrong.
On September 1st, 1980, the 34-year-old gave birth to a boy, Sean Stewart. With her 6-year-old son, Ashley, from her first marriage, plus 2 toddlers, Alana had her hands full.
I was trying to keep up with Rod and his life and being on tour and traveling, and it was a pretty stressful time.
She doesn't let me get away with a great deal. She's a great mother. That's about it. I mean, she's everything I've always wanted. She doesn't like football, and she's not too keen on rock and roll, which is a bit of a sore point, but we're working on that one.
I really pushed myself, and I was kind of dragging some of the time, and then I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr.
Epstein-Barr is a viral infection that causes chronic fatigue. While Alana struggled, Rod toured. Kimberly found it difficult to cope with Alana's illness.
She tried to be as present as she could, but she couldn't come jump on our trampoline or anything. You know, she had to rest. It was very hard for us because, you know, when my dad was out of town, we wanted her to play with us like how Daddy plays with us.
I don't take the kids on tour with me, simply because I find it difficult getting myself out of bed in the morning from one gig to another. And with kids, it would be impossible. I don't think it would be fair on them.
And it was unfortunate that his career was one that kept him away from home a lot.
Kimberly never liked him leaving. I mean, neither one of them did. They were always much happier when he was home. But Kimberly was such a little drama queen. I mean, we used to call her Betty Davis.
I would just cling onto his leg, and I'd be like, no, Daddy, I had a dream that your plane's gonna crash. You can't go. He's like, Kim, you used that excuse last time. I'm like, well, I know something bad's gonna happen. You just can't go. And I just like hold onto his leg, like for dear life, just not letting him go.
I think not having any parent in the home has to have some effect, but, you know, you try and make up for it.
He was like a very unusual father. He kind of put us to sleep in an odd way. He would have this long, like, broomstick, and he would scratch my brother's back, and then he would do mine at the same time, because our beds were right next to each other, and we both complained. So I always remember him doing that to put us to sleep, and he would sing to us.
On the rare occasions Rod took his family with him, Kimberly saw firsthand that he was no ordinary dad.
I used to sit on the side of the stage, and I'd look out in the audience, and you'd see, you know, hundreds and thousands of people just like singing every song, and just like tears in their eyes, and joy, and just like such happiness to be there. It's like a little confusing being little and like, wait, that's my dad. Like, they can't have my dad.
Stewart was hard to hold, even for Alana. In 1983, they decided to separate.
One of the things that I think eventually became a real wedge between us was he really wanted to move back to England, or at least have a home there and spend a lot of time there. And, you know, I was just a real American girl, and I wanted California to be my home, you know, my home base.
Meanwhile, her 38-year-old husband hooked up with another beautiful blonde, 23-year-old model Kelly Emberg. Rod and Kelly quickly set up house. His kids, Kimberly and Sean, stayed with Alana.
Clearly that kind of iced the proverbial cake, because their mother was struggling. And then to have this new outside influence, Kelly was very decent to Kimberly and to Sean, but it didn't make it any easier.
I really appreciated that there was someone in his life who really liked my kids, you know, and who genuinely cared about them.
On February 1st, 1984, Alana filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences.
And you get married and you think you'll never get divorced, and it's the last thing you think you're going to go through and that your kids are going to have to go through, and then, you know, somehow it happens.
Kimberly was 4 years old at the time.
I think my first memory of the divorce was she was in bed and I was begging her to come watch me swim, and she was just so upset, and I just said, I'm like, Mom, I just want to stay with you. And so I just would lay in bed with her.
I'd put them to bed at night. They would cry and want to know where their daddy was and when he was coming home.
Daddy was living in a house up the street, and he would come pick me up and he wouldn't come in. Then, I knew that there was something going on.
Kimberly didn't have time to feel sorry for herself. In 1985, she began attending the exclusive Buckley School in Sherman Oaks, California.
You know, you had Nicole Richie, you had Paris Hilton. They pretty much all had a parent or parents that were very successful. Kimberly really played down a lot of who her father was.
Kimberly, I think it has that kind of persona where she doesn't trust anybody, like even at, 9 or 10, she's always been really like self-reliant.
I wasn't one of those extremely social kind of people. I was very, very like painfully shy. And I didn't make friends easily because I was so self-conscious of like what they might think.
But Rod didn't care.
He turned up to school functions in a Lamborghini and leopard pants. Oh my God, I was so embarrassed. Especially the Lamborghini, because it wasn't just bright red in a Lamborghini, it was the sound of the engine. I mean, I knew, when my dad was coming, like 5 minutes before he came into the school. And of course, all my teachers and everything, the women teachers were like getting their hair ready and everything. Because they all loved him, and he was so charming and, got great grades.
In 1987, Kimberly's universe expanded. Rod's girlfriend, Kelly Emberg, delivered a baby girl, Ruby Stewart. Even an adorable little sister couldn't make up for her dad's absence.
When I started going over to my friends' houses and I saw that their dads got to come home at 5 and help them with their homework and sit down for dinner like every single night, and it was consistent, it was hard for me to go back to my house and not have him there. I was also extremely ashamed because I felt like everyone judged me.
I've always said to be born into this kind of life, as I was, as Kimberly was, there's always a penalty to the privilege, whether it be emotional or socially in the world, how you're treated. There's always a little, nick in the armor.
I really wanted to be normal, like more than anything. I just wanted my family to be normal and to be together and to be whole, and I wanted that so bad, and that's not how it was.
Coming up, little Kim grows up.
My dad was so chill about it. He would always be like, what, you guys shagging?
You enjoying your monster?
My dad is charismatic. He's got this great imagination. So charming. Did I say charming? so charming.
By 1987, Rod Stewart and Kelly Emberg had been living together out of wedlock for 4 years. Not even the birth of their daughter, Ruby, could convince Rod to give marriage another try.
I think in the end, Kelly decided that Rod simply wasn't ever going to marry her.
3 years later, the romance was over.
I was very sad because I really liked Kelly. I genuinely loved her. She was like a second mom to me.
Kimberly's dad wasted no time getting back in the game. In August 1990, the 45-year-old rock star met a 20-year-old blonde swimsuit model in an LA nightclub. Her name, Rachel Hunter.
I knew who he was, but I never grew up in any of his music. My dad did, but I never really listened to any of his music.
Rod and Rachel went on their first date the next night.
We just got on, our chemistry, it was like soulmates. We clicked completely. After that dinner, I went back to New York. Hadn't done the deed yet. Kept him waiting because I figured that he was used to getting that.
The first time I met Rachel, my dad introduced her as his accountant. She had like a small, like white skirt on, like tube top, and I was like, wow, it's not like a hot accountant. But I liked Rachel when I met her, and you know, she was close to my age, so it was very easy to get along with her.
Shortly after Hunter's 21st birthday, Stewart did the unthinkable.
He sent me flowers, and he flew out to New York, and 3 weeks later he asked me to marry him. Yeah, over the tuna fish sandwich.
I knew immediately this was the one for me, as you said there. She struck me as being someone who had a great deal of energy and being very sociable, which of course you are, darling. Apart from the obvious attributes, you know, that's the first thing that struck me.
On December 15th, 1990, 4 months after they met, Rod and Rachel tied the knot at the Presbyterian Chapel in Beverly Hills.
It was gorgeous. It was amazing. It was straight out of, like, a fairy tale.
The couple quickly began building a family. On June 1st, 1992, they celebrated the birth of Stewart's 5th child, daughter Renee. A son, Liam, followed 2 years later.
I was excited for brothers and sisters, you know, because I got to, like, change their nappies and pretend I was mom, and, you know, so it was fun for me.
Rod was having a blast, too.
Mrs. S says that she likes the bed.
The bed? It's not big enough for us, dear. You know, you throw your arms out in the middle of the night. This is a lovely bed.
It is a nice bed.
It's just not big enough because she's a big girl and I'm fairly big too. Long in the legs, so we need something a little broader.
Marital bliss aside, Rod never let Kimberly forget who came first.
My dad, you know, he was so good about it. He always says, like, you're my #1 girl, and it always make me feel so special.
Now that Kimberly and Sean were older, the singer took them on the road whenever he could.
We'd go into the band members' rooms, like the guitar player, and we'd get their key, and, like, we would totally trash their room. Like, we'd take out all the light bulbs, we put the mattress on the porch, and then there's this one time that my dad got, like, 12 chickens and put them in the drummer's room, and they were just, like, all over the place. And, like, that was our entertainment while we were there.
Kimberly had a blast, but didn't plan on following in Dad's footsteps. Instead, she followed Mom's. The 15-year-old zeroed in on modeling.
I went to New York with my mom, and I signed with the Ford agency, which was her agency. I got a Tommy Hilfiger campaign. After that, I gotten booked to do the shows in Milan. And I went there, and I was doing the fashion shows, and it was just so fun.
Back at home, academics became a problem for the high school sophomore. Kimberly bounced from Buckley to Beverly Hills High to Concord High in Santa Monica. Her grades improved, but Kimberly found her social niche outside the classroom.
I was just always with my brother and his friends. I always hung out with the boys, which, you know, always gets me into trouble because all of a sudden I'm dating everyone I'm hanging out with.
The teenager began dating 20-year-old Scott Kahn, the son of actor James Kahn.
Scott was definitely her first boyfriend, her first love. Scott was about 4 years older than Kimberly, and I was a little nervous about it because I thought, wait a minute, he's just too old and too mature to be going out with her.
Scott has this ability to make you feel safe and taken care of. And I think that that was really awesome for Kimberly because she was so used to, you know, feeling maybe out of place.
My dad was so chill about it. He would always be like, what, you guys shagging? And I'd be like, oh my God, Dad. So embarrassing.
Kimberly's relationship with Alana was more contentious.
We clashed a lot. You know what I mean? I was the bull and she had a china shop and I was like going crazy in it.
It was difficult. There were times when she was, especially when she was like 16 and 17, that sometimes I felt like I was in a bad marriage. I sometimes felt like their anger at their dad not being around would get directed at me.
If she and her mom, you know, had a problem and I got the call, would you please talk to your goddaughter, which I did a few times. I got involved a few times.
Kimberly didn't like the word no, and she would always find a way around it.
In 1997, Kimberly graduated from Concord High and was anxious to start living.
I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to be independent and, you know, move out and experience life on my own.
I was very much against that. I thought she was too young. And I wanted her to go to college, but she didn't want to go to college. If I said no to something, she'd go to Dad. And he thought it was okay for her to get her own apartment.
When I was getting out of high school and trying to kind of make my own way into the world, I would get concerned and insecure. So obviously, people have a lot of preconceived notions of, you know, a spoiled little brat or, you know, this crazy rock star's daughter.
While Kimberly was determined to shed her pampered image, the pressure to conform took hold.
I was extremely flat-chested, like, growing up. Very skinny, very gawky. All my friends, they had breasts. I kind of just remained the same, you know, and I knew that they weren't gonna grow.
18-year-old Kimberly decided to get breast implants.
My mom didn't think it was such a good idea, and it was like, you know, during the time that all of the silicone stuff was going on, and she had taken hers out.
I just absolutely put my foot down and said, absolutely not. But then, of course, she went to her dad and talked him into it.
Kimberly doesn't necessarily think and weigh out the pros and cons of a situation. She sees it, she does it, it's done.
Coming up, a grave diagnosis.
It was very traumatic just to hear that word, you know, especially when you're so fit.
At Stouffer's, our lasagna is America's favorite for what we put in. America's favorite for what we put in.
Celebrity Sin number 2 and 7 Deadly Hollywood Sins, all new tomorrow at 10.
What 3 aspects of your life do you never want to ever change?
Oh, that's good.
It's a very good question, though.
My humour, my down-to-earth humour, which I think I've managed to keep over the years. Family ties, I think that's very important.
I think good communication with your husband and your children.
By late 1998, communication between Rod Stewart and his wife Rachel Hunter began to break down. After 8 years as Mrs. S, the former supermodel needed a change.
I think I had a huge identity crisis. I was 21 when I got married. I had 2 children by the time I was 23, 24. I mean, I did a lot. It was a complete freak out. I mean, I was pretty full on for 8 years.
That Christmas, the Stewart family was in London, where Rod was touring. But the holiday was cut short when Rachel left for their home in Palm Beach, Florida, taking the kids with her. Within days, the couple issued a joint statement.
It came to quite a surprise when they were getting a separation because I didn't see any of the signs. There was no signs. There was no fighting. There was no. It just kind of happened.
To go and hurt somebody who you've been with for 8 years, you know, and tell them, look, I'm going through this stuff and I don't know what I'm going to do or where I'm going to go with it. That's hard.
I don't want to talk too much about this, but I was in that marriage for the long term, as it happens. Didn't work out, wasn't her fault, wasn't my fault.
Their impending divorce sparked headlines worldwide. Closer to home, Kimberly consoled her dad. The 19-year-old moved into the cottage on her father's Beverly Hills estate to be near him.
There were so many years, you know, that I'd missed with him that I felt finally like I wanted to kind of, you know, nurture our relationship a little bit and spend more time with him.
When he and Rachel broke up, I think he really kind of turned to Kimberly as a shoulder to cry on. I think she got the chance finally to be really, really close to her dad, you know, and to really, really be in his life, a really important part of his life, without having to share him with another woman, you know, because there was always another woman in his life. She never kind of had him to herself.
We became more like friends. My dad was always very strong and very not emotional, and it was kind of the first time I got to see his sensitive side, and I took care of him, and, you know, I think that he appreciates that.
Rod struggled to recover from the breakup. Then, from out of the blue, another crisis. During a routine checkup, doctors discovered a growth on Stewart's thyroid gland. The singer was diagnosed with throat cancer.
It was very traumatic just to hear that word, you know, especially when you're so fit, as I thought I've always been fit, you know. So it was very upsetting.
He actually didn't tell me, and I didn't find out until I was watching a VH1 thing that he was doing. He openly admitted it, and I just started bawling.
The time he was diagnosed with the cancer, we were making a record together. We had to stop making the record for him to go and have the operation.
In May of 2000, Rod Stewart went into surgery.
Of all places, yeah, it happened to be on the thyroid, which is right down there. And they really slit you open, mate. All the way through. It's horrible.
The operation was successful. The scare gave the Stewart clan a wake-up call.
I think it was the kids' idea. I think they said, why can't we just all have Christmas together? And so we all thought that was a great idea. So Rachel and her sister Jackie and Kelly and I cooked Christmas dinner here at the house.
You know, when there's so many new women and new children, you can lose track of where your brother is, your sister, you know, it's just, but we've tried to remain close and tried to keep everyone together.
While Rod healed, Kimberly coped with her split from longtime boyfriend Scott Kahn.
I just felt like that I needed to go be alone and grow up and, you know, do my own thing.
When they broke up, I was like devastated more than her.
Kimberly threw herself into a new career.
My dad's clothes were amazing. It was almost like, I mean, I have to be involved in fashion somehow.
I mean, I knew she'd always loved fashion, but I didn't know she had a flair for designing.
In the summer of 2000, Kimberly launched a line of jeweled sneakers called Hot Legs, a nod to dear old dad.
I just did my shoes one day, my Pumas. I rhinestoned the swish on the Puma, and I went out, and everyone was freaking out about that. And I was like, light bulb goes off. I'm like, this could be a little good business venture. And so I started selling them at my friend Tracy Ross's store, and she sold out within like 2 days.
The following year, the rock star daughter launched her very own fashion line.
Pinky Starfish is a clothing company that I started with a friend of mine, and we started making couture dresses, and then we went from couture dresses to making, you know, terry cloth jumpsuits and all sorts of different stuff.
Kimberly had lots of creativity, but little financial know-how.
I really think the line could have really taken off big, but they didn't have the funds to keep it up, and they really didn't have a business plan, so it kind of folded, and she was really, really disappointed.
The failed designer consoled herself by appearing in I Can't Deny It, one of her dad's music videos. The song was from Human, Rod's first album since his cancer surgery.
You go through what they call muscle and memory loss. So you forget how to talk a little bit and you forget how to sing. So you have to reteach yourself. But we're okay now, thank you.
Rod was more than okay. He was in love, again, this time with 29-year-old photographer Penny Lancaster.
I first met Penny at the party in the London hotel, and they'd swapped phone numbers. It was 9 months before Rod got in touch with her again.
I think he sort of took me as face value as who I was, and it was something refreshing. You know, having someone to talk to that wasn't Hollywood, because I wasn't interested in his music at the time. I was more interested in him as a person, and he's a very fun character. Very, very, you know, lovely to be around, and he's romantic and affectionate, and so, you know, we just grew to like one another.
He has a weakness for blondes. He has a weakness for striking women. And I remember the first time I met Penny, I couldn't believe, you know, the Amazonian proportions. And this is this extraordinary-looking, beautiful woman.
By the end of 2001, everyone agreed. Rod Stewart finally found his match.
I adore Penny. I think she has done wonders for my dad, and she's just such a breath of fresh air.
Coming up.
Oh my God! How can you not laugh at that? It was funny.
And from some radio stations when it was first released, was it A, Hot Legs, B, Do You Think I'm Sexy, C, Tonight's the Night, or D, Ain't Love a Bitch? Log on to eOnline and test your THS IQ.
Some beers have a full taste. Butter.
She's really into having her own identity and not being thought of just as Rod Stewart's daughter.
In January 2002, model designer Kimberly Stewart was still searching for her own path.
Kim has these tendencies to be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. So she'll start doing it, and then she'll be like, yeah, not so much. And then she'll change direction.
Along the way, she reunited with a long-lost childhood friend, Cisco Adler.
I'd known Cisco since I was little, but when we re-met, when I was, 22, he was 23, I was kind of like taken back, because I was like, oh my God, he's like the guy version of me. This is really scary. And of course, he did the whole charming thing, and, I got hooked.
Kimberly and Cisco had lots in common. Cisco was the son of legendary record producer Lou Adler. He also performed as lead singer of his own band. Kimberly felt right at home.
I'm a big girl, and I'm pretty in tune to musicians at this point and their little tricks.
She loves musicians. I think that her and Cisco had a beautiful relationship. I know that they were completely and totally in love.
In October 2004, the couple got engaged. Rod approved.
He liked Cisco a lot, too, I think. I mean, as I recall, he always liked him a lot. They would spend a lot of time with Rod.
Dad was celebrating, too. That same month, his 26th solo album, Stardust, The Great American Songbook, Volume 3, debuted at the top of the Billboard charts.
There's been a 25-year span between Rod's last #1 and this #1.
And I've had to wait quite a considerable amount of time in between. It's tremendous.
The good news kept on coming. After a lifetime of near misses at the Grammys, 13 nominations in all, Stewart finally walked away a winner on February 13, 2005. Stardust was named Best Traditional Pop Vocal Album.
He was so excited when he finally won it. And after decades of having to deal with not winning, it makes it incredibly special. He was unbelievably happy about the Grammy.
The twice-married rocker was even more thrilled with the woman in his life. 60-year-old Stewart proposed to 33-year-old Penny Lancaster after dating 5.5 years.
When he called me and he said, I've asked Penny to marry me, and I was like, no, you're lying. Because he was so adamant about not getting married again. I was a little bit taken back. I was like, are you serious?
Then, a few months later, Rod and Penny announced they were expecting a child.
We're building loads of nurseries, so I've got 3 or 4 houses here dotted around the world. So we're having to build 4 nurseries. And my wonderful fiancée, Penny, she's enjoying it thoroughly. I enjoy it, you know, enjoy going out buying the baby clothes. The only thing I don't like is the birth classes that we have to do. We have to do that every Saturday for 2.5 hours, and I tend to nod off, you know, I go, but it's all good.
Kimberly was thrilled about the new addition to the Stewart clan, but she was having second thoughts about an enhancement to her own body, her breast implants.
I felt like they were too big for my body, and I felt like maybe they were affecting my health a little bit because I was like getting tired a lot. I felt like I just wanted to get them out of me.
Kimberly faced the prospect of surgery with a healthy sense of humor.
I was over there and we were just kind of jokingly talking about it. I was like, can I have them when you're done? And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's disgusting. And I was like, come on, it'd be funny. You know, she had surgery done and everything. And she comes over and she gives me her breast in like a glass case, like frame glass case, and she signed it. And I have actually hanging in my closet.
Kimberly and her famous friends continued to make headlines. But the 25-year-old had other concerns, namely her deteriorating relationship with fiancé Cisco Adler. In May 2005, Stewart nixed her engagement.
What ended up happening is we were together for 3 years, and we learned a lot from each other, and we grew up a lot together, and I felt that it was just time for me to be by myself.
By November, Kim was head over heels again with 19-year-old Laguna Beach hottie Talon Torriero. After dating for 1 week, Kimberly agreed to marry Torriero. The announcement shocked family and friends.
I said, Kimberly, how could you get engaged to someone that I haven't even met? And she said, well, just be glad we didn't go to Vegas and get married, because that's what we were talking about. But, oh, my God.
I got the call, and I was like, she's like, my friend Talon. I was like, I'm sorry. Are you talking about the kid from the beach? I was in shock. I was like, are you kidding me?
I instantly got on the phone to her and just completely yelled at her. Because it was just like such a stupid thing to do.
The excitement fizzled fast. The couple canceled their engagement a week after announcing it.
You know, it got to the point where we were like being followed everywhere we went. The attention that we were getting was like totally making us fight. So it just kind of, it almost like took over our relationship. And you know, we're still friends. It was just, it wasn't the smartest decision. And we both look back on it now and we're like, we can laugh about it.
Kimberly's dad finally got around to filing for divorce from Rachel Hunter. The two had been separated since 1999. On November 27, 2005, Rod's fiancée, Penny Lancaster, gave birth to his 7th child, Alistair Wallace Stewart. For the world-renowned rocker, an already perfect family portrait got even better.
I never get a sense of favorites. I never get a sense of the newer ones more special than the older ones. He loves all of the children, not just 1 or 2 or 3, it's just all of the children together.
Meanwhile, Rod's first famous child is making the most of her lineage. At 26, Kimberly Stewart knows where she's been, and more importantly, where she's going.
Kim realizes that people think that she's just a girl who goes out and she's Rod Stewart's daughter and that's what she's famous for.
I think she feels like a lot of pressure to hurry up and go do something. But she's really kind of smart about it because she's not jumping at every opportunity. Kim is still young. I think, you know, she's got more than enough time to kind of make a name for herself.
I'd love to have a clothing company again and open like a chain of stores or a boutique. That's definitely something that I'm now getting back together and trying to make happen.
She wants to do her own thing, you know, apart from her dad, and be respected for her own talent and her own ability, and I think that she will.
But her heart will always belong to one man.
To this day, I am Daddy's little girl. I will always, always be that. You know, I love my dad so much.
I came to Trashy today to get